Most people chase success like it's a mountain that can only be conquered with one heroic leap. They think they need to change everything overnight. Wake up at 5 a.m., build 5 habits in a day, start a business, read 10 books, quit social media, get ripped. But that kind of thinking is a trap. It burns people out. It makes change feel impossible. Because when you believe that only huge, dramatic action can improve your life, you also believe that your tiny daily efforts are worthless, and that couldn't be further from the truth. There's a Japanese philosophy that flips that idea on its head. It suggests that greatness isn't found in explosive effort, but in slow, steady progress. It teaches that if you improve by just a tiny amount, something so small it seems invisible, you can transform your entire life. That philosophy is called Kaizen. It literally means change for better, but it's more than a method. It's a mindset. A quiet revolution, a way of approaching life that doesn't rely on motivation or force or speed, but on consistency, simplicity, and awareness. This approach helped rebuild post-war Japan. It turned struggling companies like Toyota into global giants. But it didn't stop there. Olympic coaches use it to build world champions. Artists, entrepreneurs, philosophers, it's become a silent foundation behind many success stories, not because it's flashy, but because it works. Kaizen doesn't promise instant results, it promises something better, real, lasting change. This idea can be hard to grasp, especially in a world addicted to shortcuts and overnight success stories. But Kaizen is about what happens when no one is watching. When you decide to do just one push-up instead of none. When you read one page. When you replace one negative thought. When you sit for one extra minute in silence. These tiny acts, repeated over time, don't just add up. They multiply, they compound, they shape your identity. They turn you into someone who shows up even when it's not exciting. That's the true power of Kaizen. It turns personal development from a sprint into a ritual, from a burden into a rhythm. It doesn't care if you're motivated. It doesn't care if you're perfect. It only asks one thing. Can you improve this moment by just 1%? We'll look at how small daily actions can trigger massive long-term change. We'll see how Kaizen aligns with ancient wisdom from Zen Buddhism. We'll explore how you can apply it to your habits, your goals, your mind, your body, your relationships, everything. This isn't about hacks or hustle. This is about building a system so gentle, so sustainable, that it becomes part of who you are. Not a resolution, a way of life. If you've ever felt stuck, overwhelmed by your ambitions, or tired of starting over, this philosophy might be the missing piece. Because Kaizen reminds us, you don't need to be extraordinary to begin. You just need to begin. Kaizen is a simple word, but behind it lies a powerful idea. The word itself comes from 2 Japanese characters, Kai, meaning change, Zen, meaning good. Together, they form the concept of change for the better. Not just change for the sake of change, and not massive transformation either, just steady, thoughtful, meaningful progress. It's a quiet kind of philosophy, one that doesn't shout or demand attention, but it works. Because it's grounded in something deeper than motivation. It's built on the rhythm of improvement. Although Kaizen became globally recognized through Japanese business practices in the 20th century, its roots go much further back. The mindset of Kaizen has been part of Eastern philosophy for centuries. In Zen Buddhism, there's an emphasis on presence, repetition, and refinement. The tea ceremony, for example, isn't just about drinking tea, it's about perfecting the small rituals around it. The same is true in calligraphy, martial arts, even flower arranging. All these practices are based on the belief that you can always go deeper, always move closer to the ideal, one deliberate action at a time. That's the heart of Kaizen. But the formal structure of Kaizen as we know it today took shape after World War II. Japan had been devastated, its economy was in ruins, industries were broken, and yet out of this destruction came one of the most remarkable economic recoveries in modern history, and Kaizen was at the center of it. The Japanese understood that if they couldn't rebuild quickly, they could at least rebuild better, and they did it one step at a time. They turned to new approaches in management and quality control, approaches that favored consistency, collaboration, and continuous small improvements over massive top-down restructuring. One of the most influential figures in this movement was Kaoru Ishikawa, a Japanese professor and engineer who believed that quality control shouldn't be limited to top executives or experts. He insisted that everyone in an organization should be involved in improving it. Whether you were an assembly line worker or a manager, you had the power and the responsibility to make things better. He developed tools like the Ishikawa diagram, also known as the fishbone diagram, to help teams identify root causes of problems and fix them at the source. His ideas transformed how businesses operated, not just in Japan, but around the world. Another key figure was W. Edwards Deming, an American statistician who played a huge role in bringing the principles of quality improvement to Japanese industry. Deming introduced concepts like the Plan, Do, Check, Act (PDCA) cycle, a framework for testing and refining processes incrementally. His teachings emphasized measurement, feedback, and most importantly, the power of systems over individuals. He believed that 94% of problems in business were due to flawed systems, not lazy people. That means fixing the system is more important than blaming the worker, and improving the system starts with small, intentional actions. Nowhere did these ideas flourish more than in Toyota, the car manufacturer that became a global leader not by being the flashiest, but by being the most consistent. Toyota adopted Kaizen so deeply into its culture that every employee, from the CEO to the janitor, was expected to look for ways to improve. If a factory worker spotted a problem on the assembly line, they could stop production to fix it. There was no shame in mistakes, only opportunities for learning. This approach led to innovations in efficiency, safety, and quality that made Toyota one of the most respected car brands in the world. But Kaizen didn't stay in factories. It started to leak into other parts of life: education, healthcare, sports, even personal development. Because at its core, Kaizen isn't just a business method, it's a philosophy of how to approach anything you care about. It's about believing that no matter how small your action is, it matters. It's about trusting the process instead of chasing results. And most of all, it's about taking responsibility for your own growth every single day. Let's pause and reflect on that. Think about how often we dismiss small actions. We say things like, "What's the point of exercising for just 5 minutes?" or "One page of reading won't change anything." That's the opposite of Kaizen. Kaizen says, start small, trust the momentum, improve what you can. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait for motivation. Just take one step today. Over time, those steps add up to something extraordinary. It's not about going from 0 to hero. It's about going from 0 to 1, then from 1 to 2, and so on. Kaizen has 3 core principles that make it so powerful. The first is continuous improvement. That means never settling. Not in a way that makes you anxious or perfectionistic, but in a way that keeps you curious. There's always a better way to do things, a cleaner way, a calmer way, a kinder way. It doesn't mean everything must change all the time. It means that you're always open to change, even if it's just a small tweak. It's a way of living that embraces evolution over revolution. The second principle is that everyone is responsible. This is what makes Kaizen such a democratic idea. Improvement isn't reserved for experts. You don't need a degree or a leadership title to make a difference. In a Kaizen mindset, the cleaner can improve the workflow of the office. The receptionist can improve the way guests are welcomed. And in your own life, It means you don't need permission from anyone else to start improving. You can take ownership of your own growth. You can decide that today is the day to improve something, however small, because you have the authority to do so. And the third principle is that no action is too small. This one is so important. In our results-driven culture, we often dismiss anything that doesn't bring immediate rewards. We think change has to feel hard or intense to be valuable. But Kaizen teaches the opposite. It teaches that value lies in momentum. That small steps aren't just acceptable, they're essential. Because small steps are the only kind that are truly sustainable. Anyone can do something impressive once. But Kaizen asks, can you improve just a little every day without burning out? That's where real transformation begins. Think about self-development through this lens. You don't need to wake up tomorrow as a new person. You don't need to fix everything about yourself by the end of the week. Instead, ask, what is one thing I can make slightly better today? Can I organize my desk? Can I take a 5-minute walk? Can I speak a little more kindly to myself? Can I reduce one tiny piece of friction in my daily routine? That's Kaizen in action. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're simply living with awareness and intention, and that creates a kind of quiet confidence that doesn't fade. Over time, Kaizen becomes more than a practice. It becomes an identity. You start to see yourself not as someone who needs to be fixed, but as someone who is committed to growth. You stop chasing motivation and start building systems. You stop waiting for breakthroughs and start trusting in small steps. It's not exciting, at least not in the beginning, but it's powerful, because while others burn out trying to reinvent themselves overnight, you'll be improving steadily, day after day. And that's how lasting change happens. Not through one big leap, but through thousands of quiet steps in the right direction. Most people fail to change not because they're lazy or weak or undisciplined, but because they expect too much, too fast. We live in a culture that glorifies instant results. Everyone wants the overnight transformation, the weight loss in 30 days, the business that explodes in a month, the morning routine that fixes your life in 1 week. But real life doesn't work like that. When we set unrealistic goals, we often fall into a trap called self-sabotage. We set massive expectations for ourselves, then feel crushed when we can't live up to them. It creates a cycle of guilt, burnout, and eventually giving up. Not because the dream was wrong, but because the process was unsustainable. This is exactly what happens every year with New Year's resolutions. Millions of people set bold goals in January. Go to the gym every day, cut out sugar, meditate for an hour, write a book, wake up at 5 a.m. For a few days, maybe even a couple weeks, the motivation is high, the vision feels exciting, but then reality kicks in. Life gets busy, motivation fades, you miss one workout, then two, you eat a donut and feel like a failure. Before the end of February, most people have abandoned their resolutions completely. And the worst part is not the failure itself, it's what that failure does to your belief in yourself. You start to think, maybe I just can't change. Kaizen offers a completely different approach. Instead of trying to do everything at once, it asks you to do just one thing, just a little better than yesterday. Instead of building a brand new life in 30 days, Kaizen says, build a 1% improvement every day for a year. That's it. 1%, one tiny change, one page, one step, one breath. At first it feels like nothing is happening. You don't notice the change. No one else does either. But over time, those small efforts start to stack up. They compound. They become part of who you are. And suddenly, you look back and realize that you've become someone completely different. Not because of one big moment, but because of hundreds of small, invisible ones. This is where Kaizen and perfectionism go in opposite directions. Perfectionism says, if you can't do it perfectly, don't do it at all. Kaizen says, just start and improve as you go. Perfectionism wants immediate results and flawless execution. Kaizen is patient. It values progress over perfection, and that's why it works. Because perfectionism paralyzes you. It keeps you stuck in your head, worrying about doing it right. Kaizen liberates you. It lets you take action without pressure. It makes room for mistakes, for learning, for slow growth, and that makes it sustainable. One of the most powerful ideas connected to Kaizen is the concept of identity-based change, something popularized by authors like James Clear and B.J. Fogg. The idea is this: instead of obsessing over goals like I want to lose 20 pounds or I want to write a book, you focus on becoming the kind of person who naturally does those things. It's a shift from outcome to identity, from results to process, from what you want to get to who you want to be. You stop saying, I want to run a marathon, and start saying, I am the kind of person who trains every day, even if it's just a short run. You stop saying, I want to read 50 books, and instead say, I am the kind of person who reads 1 page a day. The change might seem subtle, but it's everything. Because when you tie your identity to the habit itself, not the goal, you no longer need to rely on willpower. The behavior becomes part of who you are, and once it becomes part of your identity, it becomes automatic. You don't need to think about brushing your teeth or tying your shoes, you just do it. That's the goal with Kaizen, to build your habits into your character, so they're not just things you force yourself to do when you're feeling inspired, but things you naturally do, even when you're tired, bored, or unmotivated. B.J. Fogg, a Stanford behavior scientist, talks about the power of starting tiny. He says the mistake most people make is trying to build big habits all at once. He suggests the opposite. Start so small it feels silly. Want to build a habit of doing push-ups? Start with 1 push-up. Want to floss your teeth? Floss 1 tooth. Want to write every day? Just open the document. Why? Because the hardest part of any habit is starting. Once you're in motion, momentum kicks in. And even if you only do the tiny version of the habit, you're still reinforcing the identity you want. You're casting votes for the person you're becoming. James Clear expands on this with the idea that you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Goals are good for direction, but systems are what actually move you forward. And systems are just small routines, stacked and repeated over time. A system for fitness might be, do 10 minutes of movement every morning. A system for learning might be, watch 1 video or read 1 page before bed. These things seem small, but over months and years, they build something unshakable. And more importantly, they don't rely on motivation, they rely on structure. That's why they last. There's a powerful metaphor from nature that explains this well: the growth of bamboo. When you plant a bamboo seed, nothing happens for the first year, or the second, or the third, or the fourth. It just sits there, underground, no visible progress. But during that time, it's building a massive root system, a foundation. And then, in the 5th year, something incredible happens. It shoots up 90 feet in 6 weeks. People see the growth and think it happened overnight, but the truth is it was growing the entire time, just not in a way you could see. Your habits work the same way. You might feel like nothing is changing. You might feel like your small efforts are pointless, but beneath the surface, something is building, a mindset, a system, an identity, and eventually, all that invisible progress becomes visible. People will look at you and say, how did you change so fast? But you'll know it wasn't fast at all. It was daily, it was slow, it was intentional. That's Kaizen. So when you feel like giving up because the progress is too slow, remember the bamboo. Remember that everything great has deep roots. Remember that every expert was once a beginner doing tiny things consistently. And most of all, remember that you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You just need to keep going. Improvement isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It happens quietly, but it always happens if you keep showing up. Kaizen is a reminder that you don't have to change your whole life to move forward. You just have to change something. One thing, today. Then do it again tomorrow. It's not a race, it's not a performance, it's a practice. And every small action is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for motivation. Start now, start small, stay consistent, let the roots grow. The rest will come. Most people underestimate what small, consistent effort can do. We live in a world that's obsessed with intensity, pushing hard, going all in, getting big results as fast as possible. But when you actually look at how real, lasting success happens, it's not about intensity, it's about consistency. It's about showing up every day and doing something so small that it almost doesn't feel like it matters. But over time, that small thing multiplies. And then, one day, it becomes something massive. That's the power of the 1% rule. The 1% rule is simple. It says, if you can get just 1% better every single day, that small improvement will compound. It doesn't sound like much, just 1%. It's barely noticeable. But here's the math. If you improve by 1% every day for a year, by the end of the year, you're not 365% better. You're not even 1000% better. You're 37 times better. That's the power of compound growth. Just like compound interest in a savings account, your effort starts earning its own interest. One improvement builds on the last. Your progress starts to accelerate, not because you're doing more, but because you've built momentum. Think of it this way. Imagine you're rolling a snowball down a hill. At first, it's tiny. You can barely see it growing. But as it keeps rolling, it picks up more snow. It grows faster. It moves with more force. After a while, it's unstoppable. The same thing happens with small habits. At the start, it feels like nothing is happening. You're putting in effort, but you can't see the results. But if you keep going, those efforts start working for you. You build skills. You gain experience. You get stronger, smarter, more focused. Eventually, you hit a point where the growth becomes exponential, and it all started with 1%. Let's make it even simpler. Imagine reading just one page of a book every day. One page, that's it. In a year, you'll have read over 350 pages. That's a full-length book, or maybe two, all from one page a day. Or take walking. You walk for 10 minutes a day. That's 3,650 minutes a year, over 60 hours of movement. Again, from something so small it barely feels like exercise. This is what most people miss. They don't realize that effort, when repeated, compounds. They think big change requires big action, but the truth is, it requires small action done consistently over time. To help make this kind of progress real, you can use a simple system. Assess, improve, repeat. It starts with awareness. You assess where you are, what's working, what's not, where you feel stuck. Then, instead of trying to fix everything at once, you find one small thing you can improve. Just one. Maybe it's waking up 10 minutes earlier, or drinking one more glass of water, or spending 5 minutes planning your day. Whatever it is, you focus on that. You improve it, then you repeat the process. Every week, every month, you're checking in, adjusting, and building. This isn't about perfection, it's about direction. The beauty of this system is that it doesn't overwhelm you. You're not setting huge, scary goals. You're setting micro goals. You're making the process so manageable that it's almost impossible to fail, and over time, those micro improvements add up. You build a personal growth engine that keeps running even when life gets busy or unpredictable, because it's not about how much you do in a day, it's about whether you keep doing it. Here's another way to look at it. Imagine a line graph. The x-axis is time, the y-axis is progress. If you make no effort, your line stays flat. If you go hard for a week and then stop, your line spikes and crashes. But if you improve by just a little each day, your line curves upward, slowly at first, then steeper, then faster. That curve, that quiet, steady climb, is the shape of real success, not a sharp peak and a sharp fall, but a gentle rise that turns into a surge. Or picture a row of dominoes. One small domino can knock over another that's 50% bigger. Line them up right, and with one small push, you can topple something huge. That's what your habits are like. One small habit, done daily, can start a chain reaction. You read 1 page a day, then you're reading a chapter, then you're finishing books, then you're applying what you learn, then you're changing how you think, all from that first tiny action. This is why consistency beats intensity. Anyone can be intense for a day. Anyone can push hard when they're excited. But not everyone can be consistent when no one is watching. When it's boring, when it feels pointless. That's where Kaizen lives. In those quiet moments where you choose to show up anyway. And the reward isn't just in the results. It's in the identity you build. You become someone who doesn't quit. Someone who honors the process. Someone who grows even when the growth is invisible. James Clear put it perfectly. Success is the product of daily habits, not once-in-a-lifetime transformations. We love the dramatic stories, the overnight success, the sudden rise. But behind every overnight success is a long, quiet season of practice, of patience, of showing up day after day long before the world noticed. That's the part no one talks about. That's the part that actually matters. So if you feel like you're behind, if you feel like your goals are too big or too far away, try shrinking the target. Ask yourself, what's the smallest thing I can do today to move forward? Then do it. And tomorrow, do it again. You don't need to make a giant leap. You just need to take the next small step. That's the 1% rule. That's how small gains multiply. And that's how real transformation happens. Not with one big decision, but with hundreds of quiet ones. To truly understand Kaizen, you have to go beyond business strategies and productivity hacks. You have to look deeper into the soul of the culture that created it. Because at its core, Kaizen is not just a method for improvement. It's a way of moving through the world, and that way is deeply connected to Zen Buddhism. The connection between the two isn't always made explicit, but it's there, woven into the fabric of how the Japanese approach life, work, and even beauty. Kaizen is not just about making things better, it's about how you make things better, with presence, simplicity, humility, and total dedication to the process itself. Zen Buddhism teaches that fulfillment doesn't come from chasing after outcomes. It comes from being fully present in what you're doing right now. Whether it's drinking tea, sweeping the floor, or making a pot of rice, every action is an opportunity to enter into the moment completely. There's no such thing as a small task. There's only how deeply you can inhabit it. This mindset is at the very heart of Kaizen. It's not about rushing to the finish line. It's about showing up fully, doing the work with care, and trusting that improvement will follow. There's no obsession with results. The process is the reward. One of the key principles in Zen is simplicity. Not minimalism in a trendy, aesthetic way, but simplicity as clarity, as discipline, as stripping away the unnecessary so that only what matters remains. In Zen temples, everything is arranged with intention. There's no clutter, no excess, just enough. This same spirit is found in Kaizen. When you commit to continuous improvement, you start to let go of things that don't serve you. You reduce friction. You eliminate waste, mental, emotional, and physical. You begin to see that progress doesn't always mean doing more. Sometimes it means doing less, but doing it better. Another profound overlap between Zen and Kaizen is the emphasis on repetition. In Western culture, repetition is often seen as boring. We want novelty, we get impatient. But in Zen, repetition is sacred. It's how the mind is sharpened, it's how the spirit is trained. Monks sweep the same paths, chant the same sutras, sit in the same posture over and over, not because they're trying to be efficient, but because they know. Repetition reveals depth. The longer you stay with something, the more it teaches you. Kaizen applies this same wisdom. By repeating small improvements day after day, you start to see the layers beneath the surface. You move from doing something to understanding it, to embodying it. Zen also teaches the art of letting go of the ego. This is one of the biggest spiritual challenges in self-development. We want to see results fast, because it makes us feel good about ourselves. We want people to notice our growth. We want transformation to look impressive. But Zen says, let go of that. You're not here to perform. You're here to be present. You're here to practice. And sometimes, growth looks invisible. Sometimes, no one sees it but you. And that has to be enough. Kaizen teaches the same thing. It asks you to work in the dark, to improve even when no one is watching, to do it not for validation, but because it's the right thing to do, because it honors who you are becoming. This philosophy is beautifully expressed in traditional Japanese crafts. Think about the tea ceremony. It's a carefully choreographed ritual where every movement, the way the water is poured, the way the bowl is held, is done with intention. Not for efficiency, not for productivity, but for presence. Or take calligraphy. The brushstroke is not just about forming a character, it's about expressing your state of mind. You can't fake it, your energy is imprinted in the ink. Or think about sword making. A master blacksmith might spend decades learning how to fold and shape the steel. The process is long, quiet, repetitive, and yet every blade carries the spirit of the one who made it. This is not just skill, it's devotion. That devotion is known in Japanese culture as the shokunin spirit. A shokunin is a craftsman, not just someone who does a job, but someone who brings soul to their work. Someone who seeks perfection not out of pride, but out of reverence. The shokunin doesn't rush, they don't cut corners. They approach their craft with humility and focus, always looking for the next small way to improve. It doesn't matter if they're making sushi, shaping wood, or repairing a shoe. They give their all to the task in front of them. That's Kaizen in human form. The daily effort to refine, improve, and honor the process. And in that effort, there's another Zen concept worth knowing. Ichigyo Zamai. It means total concentration on a single act. It's the idea that when you do something, anything, you give it your full attention. No distractions, no multitasking, just you and the task. This can be anything. Washing dishes, tying your shoes, writing a sentence. What matters is the depth of your focus. Because when you enter that space, when your mind is fully in the act, you're no longer separate from what you're doing. You're not thinking about improving. You are the improvement. You're not trying to be better. You're embodying it. That's the spiritual core of Kaizen. It's not a hustle. It's not a to-do list. It's a way of becoming through doing, one action at a time, with presence, with care, with reverence for the moment. And it's deeply healing because it shifts your attention from what am I achieving to how am I being, from what do I get from this to what do I bring to this. It's a return to self, not as a project to be fixed, but as a process to be honored. So when you think about Kaizen, don't just think about goals and progress bars. Think about the way you move through your day. Think about the way you stir your coffee, the way you greet someone, the way you write an email. Each of those is an opportunity to practice, to embody excellence, even in the smallest act. Not because someone's watching, but because it shapes who you are. And that's the final lesson from Zen and Kaizen. The path is the practice. The doing is the becoming. You don't need to wait to be better. You don't need to wait to be worthy. Every time you engage with your life, fully, mindfully, patiently, you are already becoming the person you're meant to be. Kaizen just helps you remember that, one step at a time. The real power of Kaizen is that it doesn't require a complete life overhaul. You don't need to retreat to the mountains, quit your job, or wait for the perfect time to change. Kaizen meets you where you are. It fits into your life, not the other way around. It works because it doesn't rely on intensity or bursts of motivation. It simply asks, what is one small way you can improve today? When you take that question seriously, you start to see that Kaizen can be applied to everything. Your mind, your body, your work, your relationships. Every area of your life becomes an opportunity for small, consistent progress. Your mind is where everything starts. Your habits, your choices, your outlook on life, all of it begins with how you think and how you feel. And the mind, like a muscle, needs to be trained gently but consistently. You don't need to meditate for 30 minutes or become a monk to start improving your mental space. You can begin with something as simple as 2 minutes of meditation. That's all. Sit down, close your eyes, focus on your breath. 2 minutes. You might feel like nothing's happening, but with time, you'll begin to notice a shift. You'll go from 2 minutes to 5, from 5 to 10, and slowly, you'll create space between your thoughts. You'll learn to respond instead of react. You'll build a calm mind, one breath at a time. Another way to sharpen the mind through Kaizen is by learning one new idea every day. Just one. That could be reading a single paragraph from a book, watching a short video on a subject you're curious about, or listening to a podcast for 5 minutes. It doesn't matter how you do it. What matters is that you're feeding your mind regularly. You're not trying to memorize everything or become an expert overnight. You're simply building the habit of curiosity. You're creating a mind that grows steadily, quietly, over time. And then there's journaling. Most people overcomplicate it. They think they need to write essays every night. But Kaizen says just write one sentence. That's it. One thought from your day. One insight. One thing you're grateful for. Over time, that single sentence becomes a log of your mental state, a mirror for your emotions, a guide to your growth. You don't need to analyze it. Just let it be. The power comes from showing up day after day. A single line written with honesty is more valuable than pages written once a month out of guilt. Your body carries you through life. It's the vessel for everything you do, and yet it's often the first thing we neglect. We think taking care of our health requires a gym membership, a strict diet, or waking up at dawn, but Kaizen reminds us, start small. Can you do 5 push-ups right now? Just 5, that's enough. Tomorrow maybe you'll do 6, then 10. The goal isn't to become a bodybuilder overnight. It's to build the identity of someone who moves their body daily. You're not training for an event, you're training for life. The same goes for what you eat and drink. You don't have to cut out entire food groups or follow a perfect diet. Kaizen says, eat one better meal today. That could mean replacing soda with water, or choosing vegetables once, or skipping dessert today. It's not about being strict, it's about being mindful. Every better choice is a vote for your health. Every glass of water is a quiet act of self-respect. Don't underestimate these small decisions. They shape your energy, your mood, your future. Even something as ordinary as walking can be a form of Kaizen. If you normally walk 10 minutes, walk 15. If you sit all day, start with a 5-minute stroll after lunch. You don't need to hit 10,000 steps immediately. Just add a little more movement to your day. Let your body feel alive. Let it breathe. Let it stretch. Movement doesn't need to be intense to be meaningful. It just needs to be consistent. Work is where we spend a huge portion of our lives, yet it's also a place where we often get stuck in habits that drain us. Kaizen helps us approach work differently. Not by working harder, but by working smarter. The first step is to optimize one task daily. Look at your to-do list. What's one thing you could do more efficiently? Maybe it's writing emails faster, organizing your schedule, or setting a time block for focused work. You're not trying to revamp your entire workflow, you're just making one part of it smoother today than it was yesterday. Your digital environment is another key area. So many of us work in cluttered digital spaces, messy desktops, hundreds of tabs, overflowing inboxes. Kaizen says, declutter just one part of it today. Close unnecessary tabs, archive old files, create one folder for your most used documents. You don't need a total digital detox. You just need a little more clarity. Each small act of order gives your mind room to breathe. It helps you focus, it reduces stress, and it makes you feel like you're in control. Another powerful workplace habit is to improve one's system. That could mean creating a better template, automating a repetitive task, or learning a keyboard shortcut. These things seem small, but they save you time and mental energy. More importantly, they shift your mindset. You stop reacting to your work, and you start designing it. You begin to feel less like a victim of tasks and more like the architect of your process. That shift is subtle, but it's life-changing. And then there's the most important part of life, your relationships. These too can be transformed through Kaizen, not with grand gestures, but with simple, consistent kindness. One of the easiest ways to start is by giving one genuine compliment each day. Not flattery, not surface-level praise, but something real, something specific. Tell your friend you admire their resilience. Tell your partner you noticed how thoughtful they were. Tell your co-worker you appreciate their effort. One sentence can shift someone's whole day, and slowly it can shift the entire tone of your relationships. Another underrated habit is learning to apologize faster. So many conflicts drag on, not because of the mistake itself, but because of pride, ego, stubbornness. Kaizen teaches us to let go of perfection and embrace humility. If you messed up, say it. If you hurt someone, own it. You don't need to wait until everything's settled. A simple, "I'm sorry for how I spoke earlier. I was stressed, and I took it out on you," can prevent hours, days, even years of distance. And finally, practice asking more real questions. Not just how are you in passing, but how are you really feeling lately, or what's been on your mind? We live in a world full of shallow conversation. Kaizen in relationships means going a little deeper, a little more often. You don't need to solve anyone's problems. You just need to show up consistently, sincerely, patiently. Kaizen reminds us that you don't change your life, you change your day. And your day changes your life. That's the secret. Big transformations don't come from inspiration. They come from structure, from rhythm, from small choices repeated over time. And when you apply Kaizen to every part of your life, not by force, but by intention, you become someone who is always evolving. Not out of fear, not out of pressure, but out of love, out of respect for who you are and who you're becoming. You don't need to wait for the right moment. You don't need to fix everything at once. You just need to ask, what's one small thing I can improve today? Then do it. And tomorrow ask again. Let your life grow from there, slowly, quietly, powerfully. That's Kaizen. Becoming a Kaizen thinker means changing the way you see growth. It's not just about doing different things, it's about thinking differently. You begin by letting go of the myth that change has to be fast, dramatic, or impressive. You stop chasing the illusion of overnight success, because the truth is, that kind of change almost never lasts. It's like trying to build a house on sand. It might look good for a while, but without a solid foundation, it eventually crumbles. Kaizen offers you something much stronger, an inner shift that can hold the weight of your dreams. It teaches you that slow change is strong change, that steady improvement builds something unshakable. This shift starts when you realize that motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Some days you'll feel inspired. Most days you won't. If you rely on motivation to keep you going, you'll stop the moment things get hard or boring. That's why Kaizen teaches you to build systems instead of chasing moods. A system is a structure, a rhythm, a set of small routines that support your growth no matter how you feel. You don't ask, "Do I feel like doing this today?" You just do it. Not because you're forcing yourself, but because you've made it part of your life. It's who you are now. And that's the next part of the inner shift, building a new identity. A Kaizen thinker doesn't say, "I want to be successful." They say, "I am the kind of person who improves every day." That's a powerful difference. You stop focusing on what you want to achieve and start focusing on who you want to become. You're no longer chasing a finish line, you're stepping into a new version of yourself, one small action at a time. And the more you act like that person, the more real that identity becomes. Every time you make a small improvement, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you want to be. Those votes add up. To make this shift stick, you also have to make peace with imperfection. That's not easy, especially if you've spent years beating yourself up for not being good enough. But Kaizen asks you to let go of that old story. You're not here to prove anything. You're not here to be flawless. You're here to practice. And practice always includes mistakes, always. Think about a musician learning a new piece of music. They don't expect to get it perfect the first time. They play it over and over, adjusting, listening, refining. The process is the point. Your growth works the same way. You're allowed to get it wrong. You're allowed to stumble. What matters is that you keep showing up. When you truly embrace the Kaizen mindset, something shifts at the core of your self-image. You stop seeing yourself as someone who's broken or behind. You stop trying to fix yourself like you're a problem that needs solving. Instead, you begin to understand that self-development isn't about becoming someone else. It's about honoring who you already are and giving that person room to evolve. Kaizen isn't self-rejection, it's self-respect. It's saying, "I care enough about myself to grow, slowly, patiently, daily." And this isn't just about feeling better, it's about becoming more effective. When you think like a Kaizen practitioner, you stop wasting energy on guilt, shame, and unrealistic expectations. You use that energy to build. You become more grounded, more focused, more resilient. You don't panic when progress is slow because you know that small steps compound. You don't spiral when you have a bad day because you know one misstep doesn't erase 1,000 good ones. You're no longer tied to outcomes, you're committed to the process, and that mindset frees you. To bring this shift into your real everyday life, here's a simple challenge. It's not flashy, it's not extreme, but it works. Choose one small area in your life, something that feels important but manageable. Maybe it's your sleep routine, your focus at work, how you eat, how you talk to people, how you handle stress. Whatever it is, pick just one thing. Then ask, how can I improve this by 1% this week? Just 1%, not 100%, not all at once. One tiny upgrade. Maybe you go to bed 15 minutes earlier. Maybe you start setting a timer to work in focused intervals. Maybe you drink an extra glass of water, or maybe you take 30 seconds each morning to pause and breathe before starting your day. Whatever you choose, stick with it for a week. Don't try to do more. Don't try to turn it into a big goal, just show up. One small improvement, then next week do it again. Pick another 1% and another. Over time, these changes will ripple out into every part of your life. You'll feel the shift, not all at once, but slowly, deeply. And you'll realize something powerful. You're no longer waiting for change. You've become the kind of person who creates it. That's the heart of becoming a Kaizen thinker. It's not something you read about or talk about, it's something you practice. In quiet ways, in small ways, and eventually in profound ways. You begin to see yourself not as a project to be completed, but as a path to be walked. You don't rush it, you don't resent it, you respect it. And in doing so, you unlock a kind of power most people never tap into. the ability to change your life by changing how you live each day. So if there's one thing to take from all of this, let it be this. You are not far away from the life you want. You're just one small step away. And when you take that step, not out of pressure but out of love, you begin the journey. A journey without shortcuts, a journey without rush, but a journey with purpose. And that's a journey worth taking. So here we are at the end of this journey. And if there's one thing to carry with you, it's this. Small steps create big change. We live in a world that constantly tells us we need to be faster, louder, more impressive. But Kaizen quietly reminds us that slow is powerful. That daily, almost invisible effort is what leads to real, lasting transformation. Not the big, dramatic moments, not the hype, but the consistent, quiet choice to show up every day and improve something, even just a little. Kaizen isn't a tool you use once and forget. It's a way of living, a way of thinking, a mindset that reshapes how you approach everything. Your habits, your work, your health, your relationships, your thoughts. It teaches you that you don't need to rush. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't even need to feel ready. You just need to begin, wherever you are, with whatever you have, and from there, you keep going. One small step, then another. At the heart of Kaizen is daily consistency. The kind of consistency that doesn't depend on motivation. The kind that grows out of self-respect. You start to show up for yourself, not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you care. You care about the person you're becoming, and that person doesn't need to be perfect. That person only needs to be willing. We talked about the myth of overnight success and how real growth is quiet. We talked about replacing motivation with systems, simple habits and daily routines that keep you moving even when you don't feel like it. We explored the idea that you're not trying to fix yourself. You're learning to honor yourself by improving gently, patiently, day by day. We looked at the spiritual roots of Kaizen in Zen, how it invites us to slow down, to be fully present, to embrace the process over perfection. And now, the question is yours to answer. What's your next small step? What is one area of your life, just one, where you can make a 1% improvement this week? Not to impress anyone, not to fix yourself, but to take care of yourself, to take ownership, to begin moving gently in the direction of your values. That's all Kaizen asks. It's not a revolution, it's not a sprint, it's a quiet walk forward. So let this be your reminder. In a world that's always rushing you, you don't have to be extraordinary today. You just have to be 1% better, and that's enough. That's enough to grow. That's enough to change. That's enough to become who you were always capable of being. Start small, stay consistent, trust the process. That's the Kaizen way.